On this episode of Jewish Baseball More Than a Game podcast, we have guest Maddy Lewis. Maddy is a Bay Area native. She's a 2019 UC San Diego grad, three-time All-Conference third baseman and Freshman of the Year. She joined Team in Israel in 2022, and she played in the Maccabi games in Israel, two Canada Cups, and one European Championship, and has seen time at third base and second base, and also is currently working at the company Blast Motion Marketing. Maddy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Your resume really does speak for itself, so I'm psyched you're here.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on anytime. I can tell my story and connect it to my heritage. I'm all for it. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and I'm glad you guys reached out.
Yeah, so thank you for being on again. Eddie, you have such an incredible, resume. So I have 1,000 questions, so I guess I'll just start off with a simple one. Earlier when we were talking before we got started here, you said you started off playing baseball and then you started playing softball. Where did that passion come from?
Yeah, so I started playing baseball at a young age. Mentioned that I have an older brother. So was just following in his footsteps and wanted to do everything that he was doing. And, I was successful. At the younger ages, girls hit puberty a little bit earlier. So, was seeing success and didn't really find any reason to switch over to softball until I got to my sophomore year of high school. Just realized that there was going to be a little bit more opportunity down the road to pursue a college career. And just see more success, in the softball world and whatnot. But yeah, definitely inspired by my brother. I grew up around the sport a lot, going to Giants games and just any sort of sporting event you can think of. So big part of my identity and still is to this day. I'm happy I made the switch over just because it's opened up a lot of different doors for me and, continues to do so.
Absolutely. And, for those out there who don't really know, can you describe what that transition was like going from baseball to softball?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. Obviously, smaller field, bigger ball, just a quicker pace game. So I struggled a little bit in the first couple of games or seasons that when I really got into it, but then I started to really enjoy how quick it was and adapted and was able to stay successful and, got to play at UC San Diego for 4 years. So the transition was tough, but, I had a lot of support behind me and had a lot of people that believed in me to keep me going. So I'm really grateful for all the people that continue to push me and still do.
I have your numbers pulled up here on my other monitor, and you you balled out. Like you really balled out and you can continue to ball out. Where does that work ethic come from? Where does that motivation come from? Obviously representing Israel and obviously, playing at UC San Diego. Where does that fire come from to go out there and perform and, do what you got to do?
Yeah, growing up, like I mentioned, my parents threw me into a lot of different sports. So, I played soccer, I played basketball, played a little bit of water polo in high school, and then obviously baseball and softball. So I think just from a young age, and seeing, my parents work hard and whatever they set their mind to, and also my brother, like it was just kind of instilled into me from as long as I can remember. And then, just being surrounded by people that believe in you and trust in you and see that, you have some potential. Like obviously that helps a little bit as well. And then, just having the confidence in yourself too. I obviously love the sport and love competing and love, the grind, even though there's a bunch of highs and lows. I think, the highs outweigh some of those lows once you feel them. So, just really chasing that feeling of when you do put in all the hard work, finally seeing it play out and seeing success on the field, like that's always something to strive for and want to keep feeling.
Absolutely. I think Miles, you being a player now as well, and me formerly playing, like that's a huge thing, is especially the highs and the lows. And one of the reasons that Miles and I started this podcast is to get to know people, get to know their journey, and also get to know, like what Israel baseball is about. Now we have the really cool opportunity to find out what is Israel softball all about. So can you kind of just give us and dive deep into it? What are the goals for you guys? When is the next Euro championship for you guys?
Yeah. So, obviously the main goal is to play in the Olympics one day, right? And, you saw the baseball team do it in 2020. And I know a lot of or a few of the people on that team, whether I'm working with them right now or just, we spoke about how it's such a small Jewish baseball, softball world out there. So we're all connected in some way or another. They have that video out there, that the documentary. I want to say it's Swing for Gold or something of that nature. Yeah, I watched that and that just lit a fire underneath me. And obviously I got a little bit emotional as well, just seeing what they went through. So yeah, I would say obviously Olympics are definitely in mind, but at the end of the day, it's just really representing a heritage and a culture and a religion that means so much to all of us, and being able to play the sport that we all love and are passionate about, and then meeting and playing with similar like-minded people that grew up with the same background and know what it's like to be Jewish and everything that comes along with that.
I think you sort of touched on it a little bit as well, but what does it mean to you to put on that jersey and represent everything that you just talked about, especially with everything that's gone on over the past few years? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot. I mean, I grew up, my mom was, my mom's Jewish, my dad's not, but she, raised my brother and I Jewish. We went to Hebrew school, had a
Yeah.
bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, and did all the holidays, went to temple, all that kind of stuff. And, I think at the time I didn't really understand like how special it really was. I think being on the West Coast, obviously there's certain pockets where there's a good amount of Jewish people, but we're also kind of a minority out there as well. So just embracing that, and then, I never thought I would be playing for Team Israel one day, I think at a young age, but I think that whole process and, all the stuff that I went through and being connected to a Jewish community definitely played part into, wanting to pursue this and be part of it. And then my brother and I went on our birthright trip together, so got a little taste of Israel there. And then the second time that I went, I played in the Maccabi games. So just, things just stacking on top of each other and each experience being super special, and then was able to go back and make Aliyah in 2022. So, yeah, it just means a lot. And I'm just really proud to be able to put on a jersey that represents that country and do it alongside people that really mean a lot to me as well.
Nothing better than that. And kind of going off a point you previously made, so we know there's some of the Israel baseball guys too, and they tell us stories about when they travel, how they have to follow very strict guidelines. Is that the same for the softball team when they go out of the country?
Yeah, so in the airport, we don't wear anything Israel softball related when we're traveling to and from the field. We cover up, put just t-shirts on over our jerseys just to be precautious and just with everything going on, not trying to bring too much attention to us, but at the same time we want to be prideful, and we're not trying to hide anything, but we do understand the environment and everything going on like I had mentioned. So yeah, it's definitely tough and not something that is ideal, but at the same time, it's just something that we understand, and it's part of, being on this team. But by the time that we get to the field, we rep our jersey with pride, and, keep our head and our, confidence within like who we are and what we're representing.
Does that sort of put like a chip on your shoulder a little bit, especially when you get out there? Because I know, like you said, we all know the climate, right? But then once you put that jersey on, kind of like what I asked you earlier, doesn't that kind of like put a little bit of a chip on your shoulder? I'm sure that fires you up to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think, we want to put a good name for Israel out there, right? Like that's the whole goal, is to kind of get away from all the politics and everything going on and just represent a country by playing the game that we love. And I think, yeah, there's a chip on our shoulder, and it just means a lot more when we can be successful. But we also want to showcase that, we're just like any other country that just likes to play softball and, has gone through similar upbringings of wanting to play softball at the highest level possible. So, yeah, there's definitely a chip, but at the same time, like, we want to be respectful for the game and to all these other nations as well, and showcase Israel in a really positive way.
That's the best thing about softball too, is it's the same game for everybody, no matter what, no matter where you come from. Do you have a particular memory that stands out from your time either at UC? We'll do one from UC Berkeley and then start at UC San Diego. I don't know why I messed that up. And Team Israel.
Yeah, so my senior year at UC San Diego, we made a run at the national championship. So, that whole season really stands out for me. Obviously, it's my senior year, so you want to go out strong, you want to go out big. But we ended up hosting regionals and beat Chico State, who was our rival. We lost to them earlier on in the regionals, so we had to come from behind, and it's a double elimination, so we had to beat them twice on championship day. We were able to do that, so advanced on to super regionals where we played Concordia, and they were the number 1 seed, and we kind of just got hot at the right time and started playing our best softball. So, those two tournaments, the regional and the super regional, definitely stand out to me. As some of my fondest softball memories. And then we didn't perform as well as we wanted to at the national championship, but just being there and being on that stage and going out with a bang, like I was saying, my senior season, like couldn't have asked for anything more. And that whole program means a ton to me, and still very well connected to everything that's going on there. So they're a huge part of my support system, and they have been and they continue to be. So yeah, those two definitely stand out. And then with Team Israel, I would say the opening ceremonies of the Maccabi games, that was pretty insane. There was probably like 40,000 people in the stands, and got to rep Israel there as well. So, just getting our name called. We were the last ones announced, obviously, just because it's the host country, and just hearing the crowd and being on that stage, that's when everything really started to sink in. And we were able to bring home a gold medal for Israel for the first time ever. Yeah, there's a ton of memories playing the game. I'd say Euros last year in the Netherlands was also pretty memorable, just because it was the first time that I was able to, play in that sort of environment, and was able to get my citizenship successfully. Just like everything, all the hard work paying off, and being on the big stage, like it's just something you dream of. So yeah, I would say those are a few of the fondest that I have.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And it's so cool seeing, the game grow the way it is. And, we're such an amazing, tight-knit community. I think my follow-up question to you is, are you involved in terms of developing the new generation of players, or are there things that you want to get involved with in terms of building Team Israel softball?
Yeah, I think that's the whole goal, right? Is to hopefully grow the sport over in Israel, where, the knowledge and the education of the game is just not the same as it is in the US. So, tapping into the resources that the US has, that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing, is to bring that to that nation and to a country that we all feel connected to. And the sport of softball continues to grow, right? So you see a lot of other teams doing the same thing. And a lot of times it means a little bit more to be playing for a heritage that you're connected to through like your grandparents or your parents or whatever it may be. That's not just the US. So yeah, definitely one of our goals is to just hopefully, field a team of Israeli born and raised student or athletes one day, and just like continue to develop the game over there and make it similar to what it is over here.
Absolutely. And I think for me, I have two questions, but so I'll ask my first one. What would you tell a young girl now, who's playing, who may be struggling, who's not, not necessarily like they're in love with the game, but, they're just going through the struggles because it's it's a game of failure, right? So kind of what would your message be to the younger girls, whether it's in high school, middle school, and elementary school, struggling through softball?
I would say to just keep the course and trust the process. I mean, you mentioned it's an incredibly frustrating game, but also a very rewarding game at the same time. And inevitably, we're going to go through ebbs and flows of success and failures. And, at the highest level, that happens too. It's not just when you're in high school or middle school or even college. Like, you see professionals failing all the time. But yeah, I recently experienced this too, a few tournaments ago, where, you just feel like you're not seeing the ball. Everything's just, you can't catch a break, right? Like that happened. You guys are nodding your heads. We've all been there. So you got to just keep the course and trust that things are going to flip around at some point, as long as you just keep respecting the game and keep respecting your teammates. It's incredibly hard to have a mindset like that when you're in it. Like it feels like you're just down a deep hole, but things do turn around, and you just got to stay confident and act like you got to fake it till you make it, right? And just act like, everything is okay, because things will flip around at some point. So we've all been there, but, leaning on your teammates and leaning on your coaches and just, putting in the extra work whenever you need to, I would say that's the best advice I could give.
That's great advice. And I think that you're 100% right. And that it is a game of failure, and it does suck sometimes. Everyone's been in the same boat where, 0 for 10, you're like, all right, how do I break this? That teaches a lot about life too. I think there's a lot of life lessons involved on how to get through tough times. Leading up to my last and final question for you is, since it is a Jewish podcast, I got to ask, what is your advice for Jewish people in today's world with the tough climate, with, maybe some are scared, maybe some just don't really want to talk about or just kind of deny that they're Jewish. What is your message to them?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot on our team, and we always mention that you got to lead with love and lead with joy, and continue to be, proud of who you are. And there's a lot of negativity that's going around, and the culture is kind of hostile and that sort of thing. But if we can just continue to lead with a smile on our face and lead with the pride of just being Jewish and whatever that means to you and how you feel like you can spread love and joy in that field, I would say that's the best way to go about it.
Couldn't agree with you more there. I think the love and joy leading with that is the perfect answer. And actually, I lied. I have a few more questions. So, when is the next European tournament? And then what do you guys have to do in that tournament or in the tournaments leading up to the Olympics to qualify?
Yeah. So our next one, I know you asked this earlier, sorry I didn't answer. Our next European Championship is this summer or in September. So September 2025. And we play in Prague. That'll be really exciting. We're going to be going a whole week earlier than we have in the past just to get acclimated. Traveling to Europe is always kind of hard on the body. And, we want to be ready to go come game time and give us, a few days to kind of figure out where our bodies are at with like sleep schedules and that sort of thing. And then as far as the Olympics, I believe 2027 is the year that matters most. And obviously Europe is an extremely tough region. So we're going up against, Italy, Great Britain, the Netherlands, Spain's always competitive in there. Germany always gives us a run, France. So 2027 is going to be a big year for us. And I hope that I'm a little bit on the older side. I'm definitely the oldest one on the team, but I hope that, I can continue to play, stay healthy, and give it a shot.
Absolutely. And I keep lying because I have one more question for you. Sorry.
Come on, Danny.
Yeah, keep going.
I keep thinking of it as you're answering the previous questions. Who I know we were talking before this, and you said you're a huge Derek Jeter fan. Who I'm assuming that's who you looked up to in baseball when you were growing up.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, you correct me.
Yeah. No, I grew up playing shortstop, and obviously he was the guy. So I was the Yankees in majors. So was my brother. So and my mom's from the East Coast, so like by association, kind of a New York Yankee fan. Second to the Giants, of course. But yeah, Derek Jeter was always the guy. I have his autograph actually, which is really cool. But yeah, just a guy that the way he carried himself on and off the field. Obviously, everyone loves him, but I think I just really focused in on, the little things that he was able to do on the field. And I don't think I appreciated it as much when he was playing. The fact that he's done now, it makes me pretty sad that I can't continue to watch him. But yeah, he's just a guy that everyone loves and someone to look up to for sure.
Oh, he was the king of New York the whole time he was there, his whole career. And who is your favorite softball player that you looked up to? Someone that inspired you as a kid, or even now?
Yeah, I watch a lot of softball and a lot of baseball. I think so. I work for Blast Motion, like you had mentioned earlier, and one of the coolest things that I get to do is work with our influencers. And so we had Sis Bates as one of our influencers, and I believe she's even younger than me, but it was just cool to be, in the same, like when you meet someone that you feel like is super famous, but then they like come back down to earth and they're just like any normal person. Like I think that just gives you some respect about them. Like she super humble, like didn't big league or anything. Like, she's just someone she's also just going through similar, challenges. And yeah, so that was really cool to meet her and just see that, she's just really good at what she does. And that's really what sets her apart is being, but in the end, like she was great to just be able to talk to and hear about her experiences. And she's a really good player on the field. So I would say Sis Bates definitely up there in the softball world.
Sounds like a really cool job.
No, yeah, that's really cool. And now you got me thinking, who are some of the other cool figures that you've spoken to or have conversations with along the way? I'm sure you've probably met some pretty incredible people.
Yeah, on the softball side, I got to meet Jocelyn Allo, Jada Coleman, Kinsey Hansen, Aaliyah Andrews, Amanda Lorenz, it's just cool because I grew up like playing alongside these girls. So it's not like they were older than me and I watched them on TV. It was like we were all going through the same college experience at the same time. So yeah, I think, just Blast has been a ton of fun to work for. And I think, if I was working any other like 9 to 5 job, they definitely would not be as supportive of me still playing and being able to get some training in when I need it. So, and obviously, using the product and keeping myself accountable, they're all part of the support system and keeping me going.
Incredible. That's so cool. Like you have a like kind of like a 9 to 5 and train to be in a like, in the Euros and the Olympics. Can you kind of walk us through like what that training looks like now that you said something about it? Because I think it's really cool how, like you have like a full-time job and you also train. Like there's so many people who do that. I don't think like our listeners really understand the toll that it can take. And just like you have to be so organized. So can you kind of just walk us through what a day looks like for you?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. A lot of my time is spent, working, training, sleeping, eating, so but Blast is really flexible, so I'm lucky on that front. But yeah, it's definitely challenging. But I think I'm especially lucky because I am in a place where I do have a bunch of support. So, Coach Palmer is the head coach at UC San Diego. So I have her in my corner. I also work for a glove company called JH Performance, and Jake Hale is the owner of that. So he helps me train and make sure that I'm, ready to go come competition. And then obviously friends and family that are in the area, just trying to get reps any way I can. So, whether that's just going to a local park and like hitting off a tee or throwing balls up against a wall just to like get my footwork ready and that sort of thing. It's definitely a challenge and, can kind of feel like a big grind, especially when I see all my friends like doing all these other life things like, traveling or I mean, luckily I get to travel alongside playing softball, but just like the freedom that some of my friends have that sometimes you envy, but at the same time, like every time Euros roll around or anytime like a Israel softball event rolls around, it makes it all worth it just to be with my teammates and continue to do what I do.
Definitely. And they're probably envious of you too. The fact that, you get to travel the world and play softball. I mean, that's incredible in itself.
Yeah, and really to add to that, the last point that Danny just made, when I played in Germany, like after every game, we would look to the crowd and like we'd give them the applause, like as in, like thank you for attending and cheering for us, whatever. Can you kind of speak to the difference between like an American crowd and maybe a crowd overseas? Because I know that there are differences.
Yeah, there's like no rules overseas. I think we played France one year and they had like the noisemakers like they have at soccer games. So yeah, it's definitely like a lot different, depending on where you played in college, of course, too. But, the game, I wouldn't say it's definitely growing. I mean, in Europe especially, I feel like fast pitch is definitely pretty well known. So there'll be a lot of people from out of town, whether it's or maybe just like not even part of any sort of team, like they're just there to represent the home team, even if they don't have any friends or family on the team. Like they know that their country is hosting Euros, and so there'll be like little girls and families that come to the games, and it's a really good environment to be in.
That's so cool. Like, are you talking about like the vuvuzelas, those little horns that they just blow? That is so
Yeah, yeah,
that is such a different environment.
yeah.
Do you find that you get more pumped up playing in front of like a crowd like that, which is like just a party, more so than like back here in the States?
Yeah, in 2022 when we played in Euros, I wasn't on the field, but I was in the dugout. And we played Spain, and Spain was the host country, so we had the after opening ceremonies, we had the big game, right? And there were so many people in the crowd, and like not even being able to play, like I still had chills and goosebumps of just like being out there, and you kind of like you got to take a couple deep breaths because there's just a lot of hype out there, but that's why we play the game. That's why we want to be out there, and that's what you dream of.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah. So my final question to you is, when everything's kind of said and done, would you ever want to become a coach one day? Because I feel like you have such incredible, you have such an incredible resume, as I spoke to earlier, and really cool perspective just on everything, obviously from the college college softball standpoint to, playing internationally. Would you ever want to coach or lead a team in some sort of sense?
Yeah, so I do a little coaching on the side now.
That's
I give lessons here and there, and I'll be coaching our 18U team in the International Challenge this summer alongside one of my teammates, Robin Wampler. So every year there's a massive softball tournament in Colorado called the Sparkler Firecracker. And a week before that, they do the International Challenge where girls that are playing in that tournament can represent their heritage. So like you'll see Team Japan, you'll see Team Mexico, Philippines, and Team Israel has a team too. So we'll be coaching that team this summer, which will be really cool because when I was in travel ball, we didn't have that opportunity. The tournament didn't exist yet. So it'll be fun to be on that side of things. And then I'm also coaching the JCC Maccabi games in Pittsburgh this summer, and softball will be in that tournament for the first time ever. So yeah, definitely have thought about it. I think right now, because I'm still playing, it's hard to, want to look too far in the future.
For sure. Yeah.
But I think at some point, like it'll probably move in that direction, whether it's, just on the side or full time. I'm not totally sure, but I was really lucky to have a lot of good mentors and a lot of good coaches growing up that I'm always about giving back to the game and being able to share some of my knowledge and my experiences in whatever capacity helps other young girls.
Absolutely. I mean, Miles, we might have got to pull up to the Maccabi games because you got Israel softball, you got Israel baseball, all in Pittsburgh. Are you guys going the same dates or are they different dates?
Are you going too, Miles? Is that my understanding?
I want to. I really want to. I think we gotta talk about it and figure it
Yeah.
out, but I really want to go.
Yeah,
Are you-
so it's August 3rd through 8th. I know they have another one in Tucson, but I'm not sure if baseball's in that one or if they're in
I can go to
Pittsburgh.
Tucson. That's fine. I can do
How
that
about
weather.
me?
In the summer, it might be a little brutal, but that's fine. I promise this is my final question. I know I said that like 7 times, but
Good.
what's your walk-up song?
So I had two in college. My first one, so people call me Mad Dog, and I think at some point it actually like had progressively got shorter. So then it was like Doggy, and then it was like Dog. So like I have my head coach just calling me Dog. Like you could look at my text messages, like people just say like Hey Dog, and like it's just normal. It's just what it is.
Yo, that's dope.
I was
Yeah.
about to say that's so dope.
Yeah, so as you could imagine, my walk-up song was Who Let the Dogs Out. That was
Oh,
one of
that's
them.
perfect. That is perfect.
And the second one was Surfing USA by the Beach Boys. Just, living in
Good
San
one.
Diego, grew up surfing a little bit in Santa Cruz. And my dad actually suggested that one, and he's been on my softball journey with me this entire time. So just a little, tribute to him and just got me in the right mindset, going up to having at bat.
Can you get walk-up songs internationally?
They play music, but you don't choose it. So
Okay.
like individualize.
Imagine-
the home team does, I'm pretty sure.
Imagine you're overseas and they start playing Who Let the Dogs Out. People on the field probably turn and be like, what is this? I've
Yeah.
never heard this in my life. That'd be so cool, man. Well, Maddy, thank you so much for coming on. This was truly an honor to have you and hear your story. So we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I love what you guys are doing and all about awareness and just getting the word out there, especially as positively as we can. I think that's one of the biggest challenges for us is like not a lot of people know that Israel has a softball team. So, and probably same with baseball. So any way we can kind of spread that and spread the positivity, like I'm all for it and appreciate what you guys are doing.
We appreciate you. We're gonna keep up with you. We're gonna keep watching you. Maybe we'll see you down the line, maybe in August. So thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, of course. We'd love to meet you guys and we'll keep in touch and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Absolutely.